the Halo TV series, something we've all wanted since Halo released back in 2001, and we are lucky enough to live in a time where we finally get just that. Or maybe we're not. The Halo live-action series has already taken a lot of flack online, and given the current state of Halo Infinite, bad Halo press is probably the last thing that the Halo franchise needs right now. I've heard mixed reviews online and actual decent reviews from my friends who watched the series before I had the chance to. So I had to settle the score for myself and actually watch the first episode of this thing. And Microsoft so graciously has given me a free month of Paramount Plus, so I really had no excuse. So I redeemed my reward, entered in my credit card information so they can charge me forever after I forget to cancel this garbage, and started to watch a live-action adaptation of a series that's very near and dear to my heart. I've played Halo since it launched way back in 2001 and have been playing every single game since. I love the gameplay, I love the community, sometimes, and I love the lore and the Halo universe as a whole. The Halo lore is so expansive and interesting, which is why I was quite shocked to see that they weren't going to follow the lore of the games at all, and that the Halo TV series was going to follow the new Silver timeline. Before even getting into this first episode, here's my first nitpick. The Halo lore is so fleshed out that you could absolutely make a live-action series that followed the games or even followed other characters within the Halo game canon. A lot of people have brought up the idea of a Saving Private Ryan style show that followed ODSTs, or even just loosely follow the structure of one of the games. Halo Reach, in my opinion, would make an amazing show. But turns out the showrunners did not want to follow the games at all, and in fact completely ignored them. Quote, "We did not look at the game. We didn't talk about the game. We talked about the characters in the world, so I never felt limited by it being a game." So that's just great. And it just begs the question, why even make this a Halo series if you aren't going to follow the Halo games? The whole reason you were even given the budget to make this show is because of the popularity of the game. So to just immediately toss that aside, it just doesn't make much sense to me. And the funny thing is that these showrunners who made that choice, Steve Kane and Kyle Killen, are already gone. Steve leaving at the end of the first season and Kyle leaving before the show even launched. So that sounds just awful. But I didn't want to let that get in the way of me enjoying this show and giving it a chance. In doing that though, this episode leaves me with many questions, which we will get into, and I'm going to give a quick recap of the episode, so if you don't want to get spoiled, then stop watching and come back after. But I'd argue there's really not much to spoil here. The episode starts on the outer colony planet Madrigal, where insurrectionists live, and they're against the rule of the UNSC and the United Earth government. They just can't stand to be under the rule of these filthy bureaucrats and need to live their base libertarian lifestyle on this yellow-washed planet. I have to say, I really did like the costumes and the setting for the planet. The costume design and the look of the landscape actually made it look pretty alien. And here we're introduced to Quan, a young girl within the insurrectionist group, who you better like because this is going to be the main focus of the whole series. So the base gets attacked by the Covenant, and Master Chief and the rest of Silver Team drop in to save the colony, but everyone dies except Quan. Chief then finds a Forerunner cave that the Covenant were excavating, which is kind of confusing to me. Did the insurrectionists not see or hear them this whole time? I mean, they have a ship like literally flying above the cave. But no time to question that, because almost immediately Chief touches some Forerunner object in the cave, which gives him flashbacks of his childhood, which he is apparently unaware of. This is strange to me as well, because Forerunner tech is something completely different in itself, at least in the game canon. It's not something that the Chief should touch to trigger some memories. But don't worry, this MacGuffin gets even worse as we continue. So suddenly Chief, this absolute killing machine, wants to save this girl Quan. He's had a sudden change of heart, I guess, but we aren't really told why. At the time, I assumed this was because of the Forerunner artifact he found. Then quick cut to the Covenant World High Charity, which I have to say looks absolutely amazing. The Prophets also look incredible. They really did a great job with the CGI of them as opposed to the Elites, which were kinda hit and miss. But then once again, my small amount of joy with this show was quickly cut short as we are introduced to a human character that is working with the Covenant. Seriously? So just a minute ago, you have elites who were indiscriminately killing women and children and seem to almost take joy in it. Yet in this scene, you have this bitch just chilling with one of the supreme leaders of the Covenant. Why? If you have some character like this that so starkly contrasts what we've seen so far in the show, then you better have an explanation for it immediately. Introducing this character doesn't make me think, oh wow, this is so mysterious. It makes me wonder why she exists in the show in the first place. This is what I mean when I say the show makes me question almost every choice that it makes. And hey, here's another question. So Miranda Key phones in and asks Quan if she will vouch for the UNSC and the Spartans. basically using Quan as a way to bring the insurrectionists on the side of the UNSC and band together to fight the Covenant. Quan refuses and says she's just going to say that the Spartans killed her entire family. Then Key says, well, the fight was recorded, you dumb idiot. And then Quan argues that the UNSC could just make a video look like anything anyway. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, we're in the future. You can like colonize entire planets. Pretty sure you have the tech to make a deepfake instead of using this random girl. I mean, couldn't you just even dress someone up and pretend they're an insurrectionist that the Spartans saved? Why do you need Quan again? Okay, so I promise we're almost done with this synopsis. The Chief and Quan have a nice little talk with each other, which is also stupid. Apparently the Chief ended this girl's mother too because there was a bomb threat at some speech she was having or something, I don't know. And Chief's just like casually talking about this mission with this girl. Is this not classified info, Chief? Why is he just like, yeah, so this mission I was on, I don't know, it's pretty messed up really. Yeah, maybe we're the bad guys too, I mean, who knows? It just seemed really out of place. So while they're talking, the UNSC orders an Article 72 for Quan, which isn't a gift. It just means that Chief has to end her life. The show really tries to go for an evil portrayal of the UNSC. Like they just wanted to straight up end this girl and not take her in as a prisoner or something. She didn't even do anything. In fact, the insurrectionists wanted to fight alongside the Spartans when they showed up. Whatever. The Chief refuses for some reason. Now I know what the show was trying to make us think. The Chief touched the Forerunner thing, he saw a flashback of his family and remembers them now, so he feels sympathy for this terrorist girl. But I feel what really would happen in this universe, as an insanely enhanced up armored beast of a killing machine that Chief is, he would think, well, that flashback was kind of weird, but I still have my orders. And then he kills Quan. But that doesn't happen. The Chief has a heart of gold for the insurrectionist girl and decides to disobey orders. The UNSC sees this and promptly takes control of the Pelican that they're in and sends them in to be captured. The Pelican crash lands in a UNSC landing bay, and then the dumbest thing ever happens. As they're being surrounded by like 5,000 UNSC forces, the Chief touches the Forerunner object and it just shuts off everything, like the entire city. And then it just powers up the Pelican that they're in, and then they fly away. Why? This is dumb, I don't like it, I don't like this MacGuffin, and I can't really say I'm super interested to see where it's going. But I do have questions. The main thing is I just don't understand why the Chief is blatantly disobeying orders due to a flashback he saw for like a second. He's served with the UNSC for a while, I'm sure he's done messed up stuff like this in the past, but why change now? I'm not against Chief being sympathetic at all, I welcome it, but that quick flashback just erasing years of training and dedication to the UNSC were just overridden in an instant? It's silly. Now I feel like I need to address one more thing as well, and that's the perceived wokeness of this show. But is it really? Well, no, but I guess it depends on what you see as woke. In my opinion, the show just isn't. Some online figures will definitely see it that way though. Yes, there are race swap characters, but who cares? This actually makes more sense in the future where the entire world has banded together to form an alliance instead of the entire crew of every UNSC ship being white. Thankfully, there are no woke moments though. You know, where Quan or some random girl would walk up to Chief and say something like, all men are evil and I'm a strong woman. And then she overpowers him and beats him up while he's in his armor. And then she looks at the camera and says, also, I like girls. Yeah, so there's no hollow corporate queer baiting or forced dialogue like that so far. So in summary, there are some good things that I actually liked. The CGI was okay. The Covenant do look pretty good at times. Other times it's just kind of meh, but again, they really nailed the prophets and some of the aesthetic of the planets and the look of High Charity. I have to mention the violence here as well. It wasn't overly grotesque or anything, it was just enough to show that the Covenant are terrifying. It's done tastefully enough to the point that it immerses you in the world rather than take you out of it. And I'm definitely not a huge gore guy, but I still enjoyed it. I also like the armor for the Spartans. They all have really cool designs and it's easy to tell each of the members of Silver Team apart from each other based on their designs. The action was amazing as well for the most part. It was cool to see how menacing they made the Covenant and how powerful and inspiring they made the Spartans when they showed up. Unfortunately, that was a very small part of this otherwise lackluster first episode. And what really brought it down was the fact that I found myself questioning almost every decision made by the story writers and the showrunners. But like I said in the beginning of this video, those guys are gone now, and this series is already greenlit for a second season. I hope the rest of the season is able to make sense to me as it continues. I don't have much hope though. I don't like the idea of the Forerunner MacGuffin that was introduced in the first episode and is immediately affecting the world and the characters in it. We should have had more time with the Chief before having his major character change in the first 30 minutes. I don't think I'm being nitpicky with this either, just because I'm a Halo fan. I would think this with any show. If I had to give a rating for this first episode, it would be a 4 out of 10. Below average and only brought up by the action and some of the designs and set pieces. The story itself so far is not great, which again, you had the entirety of all the games to work with, but I don't want to get into. I will try to keep my hopes up though. Maybe once every episode releases, I'll do a whole review of Season 1. I've been abused by 343 with the Halo series, thinking they change every time and believing what they said, only for them to punch me in the B-sack with every new Halo release. And hey Paramount, now I'm giving you the chance to do that to me too. But hopefully they will actually make this a good series. Guys, you made it to the end of the video. If you liked it, consider giving me a sub or a like or a comment or something. The longer I make these videos, the more I realize that legitimately helps. I'm going to be making more review videos on more stuff like this, so if you like that kind of crap, consider sticking around.